We're going to review the Ben Grimm first appearance, Fantastic Four, number 1, 2, and 3, from 1961 action figure. So the concept behind this is we are going to make a Ben Grimm figure that is true to form from the first appearance, prior to him having his extreme rocky exterior where all of the plates are formed on the skin layer of the thing. In the early appearances, if you look back at FF 1, 2, really through like 12 and then onward, his appearance is more of a blobby rock creature, lumbering giant, more so than he is a with the plates and the monster rocky hide form that we see in comics. More like a rhino, like a rhino skin. So my original idea was I was going to use the rhino to make this. Then I got a really good suggestion from the customer himself, and the customer said, can you make him bigger than the other thing and make him like I think the exact thing we were looking at was Golem, like a giant lumbering giant. And I was specifically looking at the panels from FF, early issues of FF, where he couldn't even fit through a door, and he's disguised wearing the trench coat and the hat, the glasses, and he's breaking the frame of the door as he walks through. So that's kind of the inspiration I went with this. He's bigger than the Thing by far, the regular normal Thing figure that we have. So he's really kind of in scale where he's smaller than the Hulk, but much larger than the Thing that you can buy in a store. This would be like a deluxe figure. So this itself is on the body of a Mindless One Build-A-Figure, which was a pain to come by all of the parts, especially with one of them in particular being hard to get. And I can't remember if it was, I think it was an arm that was hard to get. The head is custom made, custom sculpted. And then I had to do a lot of work to get this to work. The hands and the feet are from the Thing figure, and they actually scaled perfectly for that. But it took heavy modifications to make it less rocky and smoothed out more. So it wasn't exactly the same way that it looked on the smaller Thing figure. The biggest hurdle that I had is I wanted him to have that slight hunch that he has that Kirby drew him with. So all of this area up here on the upper traps and back is all sculpted into the chest. So he kind of hunches over when he's standing up straight. And that's how the legs are also positioned. And that's done on purpose to kind of mimic how he looks in those first few issues. So his standing up straight is not really the way that you see him in later issues. He's a giant monster, and that's really the initial inception of the character design. He's a giant monster, and that's what we're sticking with this. This is what the customer wants, and that's kind of the artistic way that I wanted to express this. He's new at this. He hates this form. He's sad. I mean, you can see the expression. He does not look happy whatsoever. He misses humanity. He misses being him, and he has not come to terms with this form yet whatsoever. So some of the accessories that I gave this, we'll kind of cover the accessories first and interchangeability things first before I get into the actual sculpt and the articulation itself. So one of the things I borrowed from the Hulk, I took a shirt from the Hulk, but we made it look like a trench coat that was torn up, and gave him parts of the same trench coat that you can fit in one of his hands. And I actually have open hands. I'll show you in a second. So what I wanted, I'm going to switch out one of those hands right now. Let's do the left hand. And the hands exchange just by pulling the peg like normal. And they can change out to an open hand grip. So again, idea that he's ripping things, tearing off a trench coat, going into battle, getting into fights is kind of what I wanted to do. So this is like some of the remains of some of the trench coat where he's ripping and tearing it off, and the rest is kind of there. But I wanted to give him a fedora too. So I took this fedora. I think it originally came with a Joe Fixit Hulk figure. Painted it all brown to keep it to look like a fedora of 1961. But since we're looking at the thing and what he's wearing in the early issues, he's pretty much wearing trunks that are brown color. I wanted to match that brown color to the fedora, but I wanted to give a hint at the future uniform that he'd be wearing by putting the blue feathers in there on the side of the fedora. So I have FF, early FF, light blue color in there, and then this is weathered, where there's a subtle change in this strap and band that goes across. That's actually a different brown, a lighter brown for this bow area around here than the rest of it is. It's a darker brown. And it's subtle, but it's there. And then it's dirty because, I mean, again, this guy's torn up from whatever the heck just happened to him. And you kind of have your Ben Grimm wearing the fedora. And I went with the fedora. I didn't want to cut in. I could have cut more into the hat and let it sit more on there. But again, the idea is that even like the biggest size fedora hat isn't going to fit him well. Nothing's going to fit him quite right. And that's part of the whole problem of why he hates this transformation. So I gave him these as accessories in there. That's not something the customer asked for or wanted. I always, when I have a repeat customer that has done business with me over and over again, I try to give a little bonus of something like that. If somebody commissions something with me, we come to terms with how much the actual figure is going to cost and how much the shipping is going to cost. I don't like doing things half-assed and mediocre, so I always throw in more. So with that, I didn't even like just that. So we have interchangeable hands, as you see, and that goes for both hands. I'm not going to show you both because they really don't need to. But there's two hands that are open, two hands that are fist, and there's just an interchangeability there. So, I mean, there's tons of poses you can do with this thing, where he's, reaching, grabbing, picking things up, all of that stuff. So the other thing too is I originally was kind of playing around with the head, and I'm like, I didn't know what head I wanted to use, and it was hard to figure out, the exact look of how this thing was going to look, and how we were going to get to this part. So I'm going to pop this. The head actually pops off. This is on a magnet in here. You can hear how super magnets are pulling this thing together. So his articulation, because of the upper traps here and the back, don't allow like up and down tilt. It's back and forth swivel. So there's a limited head articulation here, but it is what it is. Articulation is still in the shoulders to be able to move up and down. We have bicep swivel here. Elbow has a single joint, and we have total pivot of the hands, where the hands move up and down without any issues. He's got a ab crunch here. He does not turn at the waist. This is all sculpted here, in addition to all the sculpting here and all the sculpt work that's throughout the entire figure to smooth it out, to make him look rocky. I wanted to have rough appearances, but I didn't want to have like anything that was a module, like sticking out, or any plates that were sticking out. So those were all smoothed out. But there's ridges and pieces that are kind of bumpy all throughout this entire thing. Let me see if I can move my lighting over here a little bit better to give you a better light source. Lots of different colors in here. I'll talk about the paint in a few minutes. Looking at the back sculpt, you can see where we are. So this entire trunks area of his legs into the upper thigh were all sculpted, as well as all of the extra sculpt that went into the actual figure itself and the body parts, the arms, legs, all of that. So the head pops off. So a reason I needed to come up with an articulation. If I put a ball joint in here and it would have sat on a peg, it wouldn't have been articulate anyway. So I wanted to secure this head on there the best I can, and that's why I used the magnet. I was originally looking at trying to use like a screaming head, and I honestly don't like this head. This came from a Hulk head, because it's more scale. But he fits the look of the early issues. Especially when I opted, there's always that eternal debate. Does the thing have teeth or no teeth? And even in the Marvel Anatomy book that just came out, it's really not clear. So every artist kind of does it different. Sometimes he has teeth, sometimes he doesn't have teeth. So this was the original head that I used, where it's just more of a blobby head where he's kind of annoyed, he's angry, he's kind of in pain, he's not tolerant of everything, he wants to go smash things and break things. I was going to just scrap this thing outright, but the customer wants it, so I'm throwing it in with it. You can kind of see the open mouth and all of that. I don't like it nearly as much as I like sad Ben Grimm, lumpy, rocky Ben Grimm head, completely asymmetrical, smoothed out, looking like he did in the first few issues. I like this way better. And again, like I said, I feel like this one works really well, and then it certainly looks cool with the fedora on too. So this was the head I like. This is a modified 3D print from a different Thing figure that I found online and was able to purchase off of another artist. I heavily modified it, sanding it down and resculpting over top of it. So it came out the way I wanted it to. Accessories besides that, there really isn't anything except I decided to throw in this, can't really see it there, this light pole. So I figure the light pole would be cool. This came with a Batman figure, but it was one of those light poles where it was a dangling light. I cut that off. I re-glued it in here by putting a peg in here to make sure it was solidified. The top of the light is silver painting underneath on the light itself, on like the glass bulb area, with a clear yellow and clear amber over top of it to kind of look like no matter what, when it's sitting on a shelf, that it's glowing. It kind of gives you that glow tone no matter what when you're looking at it in a lighted situation. So that way I don't have to put an LED light in there. The customer doesn't have to change that out. It just always looks that way. The green is the base. I repainted green over top of it anyway. Wanted it to look like it was worn out and that like New York City had done repairs, and just repainted over top of graffiti over and over again. Just kind of heavy paint on purpose. You can see silver wear because it's a metal pole, and especially on the pieces you'd be touching to, press to go across the street. Since it's in Yancey, we're talking about Yancey Street Gang being active. They're against the Thing and have a grudge against them. So we have the Thing stinks written on the pole, Yancey Street Gang graffiti on the top part of the pole, and then just weathering all over it. This is cool because it fits perfectly in his hand as a weapon. So you can put it right in his open fingers, and he can actually, oops, that just popped off. You can actually have him holding it up. It's just a matter of finding the right balance. So that's the cool thing about it. That's one of the accessories I wanted to give him, just to make it a little bit more special for the customer in this case. So he's got his Yancey Street Gang light pole that goes with him, with the graffiti on it and the weathering, and the Thing stinks. So that is pretty much everything there. We want to talk about the paint. The paint, it's not just orange. So if I just went with orange, it'd be boring. So I will tell you that this is a ton of different paints that all kind of went into this just to make this work. Off the top of my head, what I have here is I have this War Paints Demigod Flames, I think served as some of the base coloring for it. A lot of touch-up stuff were two thin coats, Manicore Ochre. I definitely have this brown Gizmo Fur stuff added in there. This is newer. This is Cerebus Brown. That's in there too. There's a ton. I mean, there's a bunch. And then what I did on top of all of that, some Ares Flesh is in there. What I did on top of all of that is I did shading with this Citadel color shade, Seraphim Sepia. That is what's in all of the recesses, all over it. So, and then it was dry brushed lightly with black and some browns with lighter colors in there too. So it has a little bit of a dirt feel to it, like he's been through some stuff. Articulation wise, He's lost a little bit of articulation in the ankles. He really can't move as well as he could before, and that is because the way that it stands and having to basically manufacture and make a figure from scratch. I had to basically engineer how this thing was going to stand up, and I wanted him to have that hunched over look, so that changed things significantly to have that hunched over look, to get him to stand. So we lost a little bit of our ankle articulation to have this hunched over look, but the cool thing about it is with the hunched over look, he can essentially, he's towering over another figure. And I'm going to grab a Wolverine. I know Wolverine's on the short side, but it'll work for our purposes here. I'll show you where Wolverine comes up to on him, where he is just gigantic over him and making Wolverine look like super tiny. I mean, that's the difference in size on that, and that's with hunch over. So if he's standing upright, which I don't really like, but if he's standing upright, I mean, look at the size difference on him and Wolverine. This is exactly what I was trying to achieve with looking at those early issues of FF. I don't want this guy to be able to fit easily in the Fantastic car. I want everything to have to be custom made for him because he's that big. So that's where we are with it. The paint work is all done. It's sealed with dry coat seal. It has so many hours of paint into this thing. This is all weathered. It's got multiple layers of brown to kind of bring out some of the details in here. There's sculpt work that's in here. You can see kind of some scrapes and some ripples of the where the fabric folds are. And then same thing on the back here. You can kind of see how that goes. I don't want him to be clean looking. He shouldn't be clean looking. This should be a piecemealed look early on before he gets his FF uniform. I like this body. I think it looks cool. I don't think I'll ever do another thing similar to this, because it's just, these parts are so hard to get. I mean, it looks like everyone's army building the mindless one now, and getting the parts for the mindless one are expensive. I think like just getting a mindless one's around $100 now in itself. So we're looking at a base figure of $100. There's got to be better options. So I don't really want to mess with that too much. But again, that's what the customer wanted, and I'm trying to make this guy happy. Showing teaser stuff, it looks like everything worked out the way he wants. So I'm going to ship this later this week and move on and start working on some other projects that are out there that I have tied up, because this thing is taking way too long to get done because of distractions of real world life, work, kids, family, all that kind of stuff, plus injuries and random stuff. So he goes out this week. This is the review video of it, just to kind of showcase everything that was done here. I'm happy with it. I think it looks good. I'm hoping the customer's happy with it, and we'll move from there. I'm going to tell you to like and subscribe the video. Check out other videos that are on here specifically for tips for custom painting, sculpting, and other details. And I will update and add new videos soon. So thanks for checking it out. If you have questions, comments, leave them below.